and him and Raven, he's got a good old relationship back in the day. I remember like we partied at his place when he was
back then when he actually he smoked and he drank and we did both this and that, and suddenly everyone grew up.
There were times.
Yeah, that was nice. We had a lot of stuff. I don't know. It's really weird, this band thing, because Raven is kind of like the conductor. He's kind of like this. Now you do this. Now you do this. And he's a little bit like that. He's like the Danzig of Norwegian black metal, in the way he kind of,
Yeah.
But it's weird because like with this album now, I wrote the lyrics. Him and Frost sat down and hacked out that insane amount of riffs and stuff, and then Raven listens to it, kind of applies my lyrics on top of it, and then he comes back to me and we spend a night or two together and we just go through every line, like, should we move it there? Comma there, remove a letter. It's down to that. But the magic is when I get like now, some weeks ago, it's like, here's the finished master. It's like, okay, let's hear it, because I have no clue what, we just do our parts to the best ability we have, and the magic is when we put it on and go like, there's a whole world here.
Greetings, Legion, and welcome to episode 220 of Into the Necrosphere. On this week's episode, we travel to the infamous Akershus fortress in Oslo, Norway, where I am chatting to Archaon of the band 1349 about the upcoming 1349 album. We spoke about the band's history. We spoke about black metal generally, and then later on we were also joined by my good buddy, my brother, Svartalv of the band Nocturnal Breed. He, of course, is a primary contributor of lyrics to 1349, so we spoke about how that relationship began, as well as touching on several other topics along the way. That is going to be coming your way very shortly, but before we get to that, we've got us a little world premiere this week, and this one is particularly special to me because it is a band that you will all be familiar with. That band is Werewolves. Somewhat of a signature band for Into the Necrosphere, I think you could say. I think it would be fair to make that argument. They have they're producing, or releasing, I should say, their annual album. This one is going to be called Die For Us on July the 12th, and they have very kindly asked me to be the first platform to share with you the very first single off of that record. This is Beaten Back to Life. That was the world premiere of the brand new single by my favorite Australian band, Werewolves. The album is going to be called The Die For Us. It is released on July the 12th, and the song that you just listened to was Beaten Back to Life. I will post a link to the Werewolves Bandcamp in the description to the podcast. Head over there, check out their music. Pre-order the album. Make them know that when the Legion hears something that they like on Into the Necrosphere, we will mobilize and show our support to that band in our droves. But great stuff. I will certainly have Sam, Matt, possibly even David on the podcast at some point in the not too distant future. But really appreciate the fact that they already honored, I should say, by the fact that they chose Into the Necrosphere as the debut of their forthcoming record. My friends, if you are new to the podcast and you have not already done so, then grab a weight belt and cover it in Mama Rhodes' tears and Cody Rhodes' blood, and then beat the subscribe button on your platform of choice until it begs you for mercy. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and on X. And of course, if you're not yet representing Into the Necrosphere in your wardrobe, then head over to the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store and pick yourself out a t-shirt or a hoodie. Safe in the knowledge that whatever money you spend on there will get plowed straight back into the podcast. Make sure as well that you are supporting and following my fellow horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. On a Monday, Brandon Legion brings you Horrorwolf 666. Yours truly casts hexes and slays poses on Into the Necrosphere every Tuesday. Last week I mentioned that I had a couple of pretty big guests in the pipeline. Guests that I had potentially booked based off of a couple of folks that I had met while I was in Oslo for Inferno. One of those has happened, and I'm going to be posting that episode in 3 weeks' time. I am not going to tell you who the guest is, certainly not right now, but if you wait until the very end of the podcast, I might just drop a little secret. Well, I might just share a little doozy with you all. Anyway, moving on. On a Wednesday, Sensei Mike Hill brings you another installment of his excellent Everything Went Black podcast. Every Thursday, Sensei Mike Hill returns alongside his co-hosts, Sheriff Mike Scandado and Professor Jeff Kashid, for another installment of Necromaniacs, my favorite podcast of the week. Here's an idea, by the way. What do you guys think of a live Horseman podcast getting recorded at Inferno in 2025? If you're down with that idea, make sure you let me know in the comments. Start making noise on social media, and hopefully I will be able to go to Katie and plead our case and see if we can make that happen, because I think that'll be fucking awesome. Doesn't necessarily have to be all of us, but if we can get a good 4 or 5 horsemen on stage together doing a podcast in front of an audience, I think that'll be fucking awesome. And I think it's high time that Mike Hill, Mike Scandado, Brandon, Carl, really every one of them get their acts together and go over to Norway. If you're down with that idea, then make your voice heard. That's and I know when the Legion is interested in an idea, you guys tend to make noise about it in any case. But anyways, Soul Knox is another podcast you need to be checking out. Another one of our stable. It is hosted by none other than the inimitable Sinister Minister Carl Hykara, and he takes you on a journey into the dark, weird, arcane, and esoteric every Thursday and every Sunday. And then, of course, my good friend Cheyenne of the band Trivax, who I am representing by way of a t-shirt right now, hosts Iblis Manifestations, and man, he has been on an absolute tear. He's just had an interview with one of the members of Crypta go completely nuclear on YouTube, and I would assume on all of the audio platforms as well. So make sure that you are supporting him. Also, critically, don't go anywhere when I am done with my conversation with Archaon and Svartalv, because last week it went on hiatus. This week it's back. I speak, of course, of the weekly news rant, and we are listening to new music by Bythos, Blaze of Perdition, and of course, the biggest release possibly of the weekend, very possibly of the year. Akhlys are putting out a brand new album, and we are going to be listening to what that new single sounds like, and I will give you my first and candid thoughts about it when I do. Right now, though, sit back and enjoy as I whisk you away to Oslo, Norway, for a conversation with my friend Archaon of the band 1349 and my brother Svartalv of the band Nocturnal Breed.
All right, dude. I have to say, this really is the fucking coolest place we could possibly have done an interview in. I'm going to stand up a little bit.
Am I blocking it?
My ego can't deal with you looking significantly taller than I do. So
It's hard to get away from that to get the cannons. Do you get any? Yeah?
all right.
Okay.
All right, man. Well, like I said, great to finally see you again after it has been almost 20 years since we last met. And you wouldn't have remembered, as I spoke to Raven for all of the last time that we were, that I interviewed 1349. But a lot of changes for the band since then, and a lot's happened since then. Obviously, we were listening to some new music in the car, so let's maybe talk about that first and foremost.
Yep.
And if there's anything that you're going to get in trouble over with Season of Mist, we can edit it out later. But yeah, so when did the writing for the new record start? What's kind of been the backstory to that? Because when Svartalv mentioned that it's done and that I'm going to get to a few snippets.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you guys were that far down the track. I think I'd heard the murmurings of new music.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure that we were quite that far yet.
I mean, he Svartalv would know quite a bit because he's done the lyrics for it. So
Yeah.
Without him, well, to be honest, it's been in the works since. I mean, it's like with 1349, it's a continuous thing going on when you after the cycle of the last album. I don't think none of us thought it would take that long amount of
5
time.
years,
Does,
because you guys put out the last one in 2019.
But we did the same time before. Used the same time between the previous album and the one before that, and kind of it follows the cycles where we emphasize quality over, just doing some hasty.
So you don't want to just crank out something once a year.
We don't really mind the time as such, because that's not where we're at. We do this for what we believe is the right reasons, and thus, I mean, we take some time, if you will, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion.
Well, dude, the little bits that I heard, as I said to you when we were walking here, there's like a natural flow and a groove to this that I don't think I've heard from 1349 before, but it makes the music to me, from the 2-3 tracks that I heard, it makes it sound more menacing, which I just absolutely love. But you write most of the music, and one thing that I noticed as I was listening through like 2-3 tracks from every album this morning on the flight here, and the one thing that I noticed, it very much feels to me like there's almost sort of a reset that takes place after every record, because every album is unmistakably 1349, but every album is also very distinct. Like it's quite different. It has its own vibe. It has its own feel, etc., etc. What's your process?
No, I suppose you pinpoint it with the time frames there. Because there's like. Going out from one album from the creative process into the touring process, and until then that keeps on going for a while until you somewhat meets the threshold where you want to go into that different mode again. It's like a continuous cycle, if you will. But I mean, it's something that. It's varied a little bit from when we were in the beginning, like when we talk about the first time we met so many years ago. It was the same band, but it has definitely matured a lot since then, and in all aspects of the word. I mean, we've learned, of course, along the way. So it's hopefully. For the best in most ways, but it's not been completely without sacrifices, and a lot of effort,
also not without risks, I would say, because I mean, I don't want not to jump all over the place, but I remember when Revelations of the Black Flame came out. That was that was a big risk. You know, when you are about to put out a record like that, like, you must know in the back of your mind, like, fans that were usually into Hellfire and usually into Liberation are going to go, what the fuck is this?
Absolutely. I mean, we knew that from
so how does, you know, what's going through your mind? Like, what's your thought process, right, when you're about to release it? Is it something that when you're creating the record, you know this is you taking a risk, or is it after the fact that it dawns on you that, like, okay, this has come out very different to the previous stuff?
I'd say we're pretty conscious about the music, as far as our kind of quality filter is that we are so critical, all of us, and believe it or not, I think we're one of very few bands that has applied a certain type of democracy, if you will, where we all have a say in order to secure the maximum output value in terms of quality, and that is important, I think. I mean, because don't get me wrong, it's a lot of people with a lot of enthusiasm here, so we will fight to the death, all of us, in order to get, you know, not to get your will, but to get the best result, and in that way, I think it's something that can tear a band apart in the youthful young years, if you're unlucky enough, but it turns into an advantage with time. We're able to transcend into a different stage where you're mature enough to and especially with the last album. I mean, I recall talking with Sideman about this just like soon a year ago, and like reflecting on you know, the path that we've been on, and trying to evaluate somehow the value of what we are still doing in terms of this dark art that we are celebrating and doing still.
Yeah, I was funnily enough, I was reading something a while back about you know, how relationships are made and broken by the way the argument takes place. If, like, the argument is taking place with all parties concerned trying to solve the same problem, typically that's good. If it's one side trying to fight a corner that's completely different to the other side, if the problems are two completely separate things, that's when things start to tear apart. But I mean, you having written quite a lot of the music yourself, is it hard for you to kind of throw it out into the I guess the band circle and see some of it changed, or see people go, I don't like this, or this sucks?
Again, back to, if you asked me 20 years ago, I'll probably have a different view than today.
Yeah.
But no, not now. Of course, there's bits where I feel that things were made there for a reason and designed for that purpose that it serves. But all in all, I think it's a good thing that we have a discussion about it, because it's not something that is done just for the sake of arguing. It's usually I try to meet it with the aspect that this is in order to improve the total of the sum of all the parts. You know, that saying that where the total is bigger than the sum of its parts. So.
Yeah, when 1 plus 1 equals 3, that's when the magic happens.
Really, yeah. But seriously, that's how I feel that we have ended up, and therefore it's more beneficial to hear everybody, and to invite to get a broader spectre, and even more so. I mean, with time. So, for instance, the new album, I was inviting everyone to come forth with their ideas, and I got some ideas from both Raven and Sideman, and then previously Frost has contributed a lot, and both to composing things and to arranging or to musically affect things. He's got his ways and the things that works for us in order to create something dynamic, and I think that reflects a lot in the new album, where as we were talking about earlier, the vitality that we have been able to preserve in the band has never been stronger. And with that in mind, and with that under the belt, you know, you can front it and meet it with a a better consciousness and a sense of worth.
Yeah, and I was going to say as well, you're also lucky you're not surrounded by a bunch of goons. You know, it's like you have, when it comes to black metal, I mean, you've got tier 1 musicians that are playing with you. Well, how far back does your relationship stretch with Frost?
Frost and I mean, I can't remember the first time I met him was out drinking ages before Third of Nine, but the first time I really like the first time we started playing together was 2000 when he entered the band.
Yeah,
I joined the band 1 year prior to that, and the band started 1 year prior to that, or so ish.
In '97, I think, is when you guys officially started.
Yeah, so 97, 98. I mean, there was a demo or two before. I think it was a rehearsal tape and one demo before, but nothing official, you know. And then we was like this mini CD, that's kind of the demo-ish thing as well. Back when we met Svartalv and the rest of the people around the scene at that time. We were hanging out together a lot, and partying at Raven's place, and you know, we were hanging out in the same pubs. And
you're 44 years old now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm turning 44 today. So it's like, so we're thank you very much. With the same age, but I'm wondering how. You know, you're slightly younger than Frost and Svartalv. Like, what was it like for you being a younger guy and probably having observed at least part of that formation of the second wave of black metal, then becoming part of it? I mean, that must have been really, really exciting, but like probably slightly intimidating as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, if we're going back to like the youth, I mean, I had no clue because I didn't see it for the musical value of things. You know, I just saw the controversy in media or whatever, and I was into like Anthrax, Maiden, and Metallica, and all the stuff that we used to listen to. I mean, first concert I went to was like Lita for the Bon Jovi. It's like old shit from '88. You know, my mother took me, and then we started going to gigs after that, and. Wasp and Iron Maiden and Metallica.
Dude, Wasp is like a recurring theme.
Yeah, you know.
Almost all my recent episodes, like everyone I speak to, it's invariably we get to, hey, by the way, you know what was fucking brilliant? Like this album by Wasp or that song by Wasp.
Yeah.
That band gets not even close to enough love.
This is true. I totally agree with that. And I mean, especially hindsight, looking back at their portfolio, is like. They definitely have done a lot for controversy, for rock, and for the shock effect, and for everything that we later have celebrated, and a lot of bands built on. A lot of bands have done. I mean, back in the day, just like I suppose most souls that get into metal, you know, go into to find something that reflects for their youth and for the rebellious. Years of that, and how can I say? It's you know, it's like it was weird. It was exciting at the same time, but it didn't appeal for the right reasons at first. But it was frightening.
I was just saying to Svartalv today.
Just like if you like horror movies, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I mean,
it's that
not just slashers and stuff, but like a lot of psychological stuff. Is what majorly entertains me, and in a certain way, I mean, the first time I got the grip of black metal genre, I'd say, was. The first time I appreciated the musical qualities of it was two albums in particular. It was Mayhem, The Mistress Dom Satanas, and Ulver Bergtatt. We were writing 94 or so.
Yeah, that would have been
party when you're 15, and then I kind of, this is actually good, and all of a sudden I approached it with a different respect than before.
That morbid curiosity that you just spoke about now, I was talking to Svartalv about this on the drive back from the airport. It was exactly the same for me. I said to him, I discovered black metal and gangster rap on the exact same day. There was this lousy, you know, sort of housewives magazine in South Africa called The Huisgenoot that was published, and they had this big spread where they had a picture of Emperor and they had the famous picture of Varg with a knife and you know how he's murdered. They didn't even mention Euronymous by name, but they said, you know, how he's murdered a rival band member. And, you know, I didn't know the music at all. And they were obviously talking about it as though it's the worst thing to ever be unleashed upon the public in the history of music. And I'm like, man, this is, I need to hear what this shit sounds like. And then on the overleaf, you're like, well, and it's not just Norwegian black metal musicians killing each other. They've got this thing about gangster rap, and they've got a picture of Ice-T and the album cover for Home Invasion. I was like, I need to give that shit a listen as well. The album for me, there were the two biggest, like from a Norwegian black metal perspective, black metal just period, that turned me, Battles in the North, which I've said on the podcast quite a few times, and In the Nightside Eclipse. But when I heard Battles in the North, it was like, I knew I was listening to Battles in the North before someone confirmed I was listening to Battles in the North. Because I'd read a review of it on Metal Maniacs, or in Metal Maniacs magazine, sorry. And the way they described it, as soon as the song started, I was like, just in the back of my head, I was like, "This is Battles in the North."
Well, you should have it here with the cannons.
Oh, exactly. That's perfect for it.
All loaded and get ready. Oh, it's there was the different times back then, and
very much so. But getting into getting into the music the way that you did, and then meeting somebody like Frost and actually playing in a or sharing a band room, sharing a stage with him. That's what I was referring to earlier. Like that must have been. Is that intimidating? Is it a mixture of intimidation and excitement?
It's never really been like that. I mean, I haven't approached it like that. I approached him. I mean, I remember when Raven came and said, that he had spoken with him and that he appreciated our music, because he did. We used to share rehearsal space with Satyricon back in the day, early 2000s and late 90s, and then we. I remember one day after rehearsal when he was packing up his stuff, and he just all of a sudden he sat down in the couch and just listened to our set. I mean, nobody has asked him to do, and well, of course you're aware that he's a guy like the rest of us, So, but of course he's a really talented drummer, and that's why I judged him. So I felt cool. It's he wants to hear what we did. We played it, and then at the end of that, he stood up, I remember, and he gave us an applause. It was really good material, and cool. That's cool to hear from him.
That must feel fucking incredible.
That is a good thing to feel, of course. But then, and after that, a little bit further down the line, he had spoken with Raven, and he came back to us. Spoke with Frost the other day, and he wants to, if we are up for it, because of naturally he's got Satyricon, and that will always maintain as his first priority, just in the nature of things, and we're very aware of that. But if we can you live with that and have one of the best drummers in extreme metal today, I would say.
I'd say it's a no-brainer.
And I mean, for us, that was definitely a huge possibility. But realistically, also look at it with some limitations, of course, because you have one that is really busy with other bands. But all that aside, I still think it's worth it. I still think Frost has got a certain special style and special personality to his playing that really makes affects the whole band and the whole band's dynamic. It's in addition to him as a person, which is also really in many ways enriching to the band, I would say. I mean, I tend to focus on all the things that can enrich the band, and he definitely has a lot of it.
And you guys have never had a problem attracting, like when you've needed somebody in a pinch, you've never had a problem attracting other very top tier players. Like Tony from Nile played with you guys for a period of time.
Tony's a great guy, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a great drummer. The same goes for John Rice from Job for Cowboy that did play with us for a while, and last one is Niels. Niels from Niels Kjellström from Dominator.
Yes.
From
yeah.
Previously, and Nordjävel now. more recent band.
Dude, it's like a fucking lineup of Hall of Famers coming through the band.
Well, there's been a couple, and it's big shoes to fill, so no wonder.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's not anybody that wants to step in. I won't mention names, but I remember we went through sometimes, and there were quite a few that actually, and some that were really just blatantly honest, saying, look, as much as I like your music, that's big shoes to fill. I don't know if I would want to put myself in that position, which I understand totally and respect. So, it's more positive than a two-edged blade.
Yeah,
I'd say to have Frost in the band.
It's also though it's tribute to your reputation that you're able to get those guys interested in, and frankly, I think that people have enough respect for you to say, I don't think I can, I mean, I like your music, but I don't think that I can hack it.
Sure,
doing that.
And I think it's also realistically a totally rational decision to make, because at some point the threshold of the music's nature is not exactly easy query. It's
also those Svartalv told me that when you guys have people that play in the band and they make mistakes and things like that, afterwards it's down to pound town. That's what he said.
Some other bands it might just be the case.
They come off the stage and you're sitting there with the form like, all right guys, let's go through your performance tonight's show.
I bet the recruitment thing would look quite differently if we apply that one, for sure. No, man. It's I mean, as much as I like to stay balanced and don't get me wrong, relaxed.
Yes.
After the whole energy boost of the live performance, or the total effort of being in a studio setting, which takes its toll. I mean, it really drains you, and it should, because that's you got to.
I'm about to say you're putting your best foot forward. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
So as much as that, I mean, still I think we have a good balanced way of acting when we execute the art.
Yeah.
So I still enjoy it, and that's part of why I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I bet that goes for the most of us in the band.
Well, that's also
in
to me.
2024. I mean, today it looks different. The whole musical spectre. The whole. I mean, you bring up rap. I mean, 20 years ago. I mean, I don't think we would be. Would we even talk about rap besides metal?
No, I was about to say never. You'd never bring it up.
It's been like a long process to get there, and looking at the world today is quite ambivalent in many ways, well, dude, I mean, can you imagine interviewing Euronymous in 1994 and going, hey, you know what's fucking great? Ice-T's Home Invasion. Exactly, I'm sure that would be.
I must say, that would be the end of the fucking conversation.
Yeah, probably was secure that they didn't go on. Stay underground.
Yeah, no, exactly. But no, you're right. But I remember when 1349 came out, there was like my observation of it, because I remember hearing I Breathe Spears for the first time, there was something that was like very intentionally confrontational about that record. Like it almost felt to me like, in some ways, Frost was, and this again, I'm speaking from my observation as a fan. So it almost felt to me like Frost was doing that as kind of a catharsis from the direction that Satyricon was taking.
I see where you're coming from.
But yeah, almost. Also, there was a lot of it changed not long after, but there was a lot of bullshit going on in black metal at that time. A lot of bands that were, weak, sitting around by the riverside crying, that kind of, like just soft shit. It wasn't like you and I've spoken about it, and I really do think Gorgoroth's Ad Majorem Satanas Gloriam and what you guys did, and probably Marduk, especially when they got Mortis into the band, I think that really got black metal back on track.
Sure.
And the response to those albums and to you guys, to me that it indicates that there was an appetite for that from fans. Like they were sick and tired of, hopefully you don't know anybody in the band, but Dismal Euphony and shit like that. Like no one was interested in listening to that nonsense, but it was being sold as black metal.
Yeah.
So, But yeah,
I mean,
so that's my random train of consciousness theory. So tell me what you think.
Black metal entwined with power metal and all this weird gothic stuff.
Yeah,
and eventually leads to fucking new metal and all the things that happened further on. It's really weird because it's like I still feel some kind of resistance. What do you call it? When you get your fangs out, kind of thing. Because I discuss with people that are now closer to the age that we are. It's like we're usually before. It's like I would think that they were, too close, but too young. It's kind of wiped out the whole the borders here. But kind of sometimes when I think about that, like new metal stuff, I feel those borders again coming because it's so awkward for me. I mean, I really disliked it so much at that time. I couldn't take that.
See, I like Static X.
For instance,
the first Static X album I'll never not love.
Sepultura album.
Roots.
I absolutely can't take it. I really can't.
You look like you were going to dry heave when I said the name.
I really can't take it. I mean, that's the borderline for me. I mean, but I'm sure. I totally accept it. It made them huge, but they blew up, imploded as well.
Yeah, they did. They did. And it's interesting that the Cavalera brothers at least are going back to
very much
the old stuff now.
But they had so many good stuff. I mean, works. Before that, I mean, all the albums prior to the mentioned album, I'd say. I mean, even up to Chaos AD, I'd say I could find a lot of quality in.
Well, I also liked. Have you heard Troops of Doom? That Gyro used to be in Sepultura. That I can't remember what the first album was called. There's a new one about to come out now, which is what I'm thinking of then. But the first album they released a couple of years ago on Fernando from Moonspell's label, and it's fucking brilliant. Really cool.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's got that same vibe as Bestial Devastation and records like that, but obviously with slightly better production. But yeah, as I said, I mean, back to with you guys, that thing of Frost kind of having that catharsis. Is there truth to that?
Absolutely. I mean, when you mention first album, the band in the debut phase of their career is like, of course, this, it was put at the time. I remember firing on all cylinders, and we really were both all members and the band as a whole. So it was a powerful unit from the get-go, I'd say. But it kind of grew stronger. From there on, and I like the fact that it without just getting refined and smooth, and that it stayed hard, stayed as a opposite to exactly what we were talking about earlier. I mean, I like lots of different music, but I'm also of the firm belief that some things should be what they should be. I mean, not that
they should be abrasive.
You cannot. It's not that you can't evolve, of course, but I mean, we're not mentioning names. So I know a few bands that where I felt it hard when there's like a threshold in their career where you feel like, oh, this is too obvious where this is going. It kind of you lose the whole. Well, enthusiasm around it.
For me, you were talking about like that reflexive feeling that you get. Like for me, it feels when bands do that. Sometimes it's like I start questioning whether they ever really were into what they were doing. Period. But also, it makes me feel like they don't love what they do anymore, and they're kind of just sticking. They're just putting it out under a particular name because the name has got some degree of brand recognition. It's like, well, we're going to release it as this because everyone knows us as this. We're not just going to go, let's call time on that band, let's start something else because we're just not interested in this music anymore. And my observation's been over the last couple of years, people I've spoken to on the podcast, is the guys that have been doing this for 2-3 decades that are still operating at a very high level are people that you can tell from 10 minutes of talking to them. Sure. They love what they do. They love the music they make, and they still love music generally. They still have some degree of excitement about discovering new music. Like Shane Embury is a good example of that.
Exactly, yeah.
Greg McIntosh is a great example of that. I mean, Greg McIntosh, the stuff he's done with Valenfire and Strigway, who would have thought that when Host came out? you know what I mean?
Again, it's got a death metal band, the Blood.
Strigway. So he did. So
What's he called again? It's Blood.
Oh no, you think of Nick Holmes? He's in Bloodbath.
Oh yeah, Bloodbath.
Yeah.
That was a great match.
Oh, dude! But if you haven't heard Strigoi and Valenfire, you've got a treat coming your way.
I've seen the names, but I haven't heard it yet.
It's much heavier and darker than Bloodbath, but it's just it's mean shit. But again, coming back to you guys,
I like a lot of English music. So, but I remember back to when you asked about the early scenes earlier. That was where I used to come from when that black metal thing came. I was highly into like the York and the northern English doom metal scene because it was so vital and so good at the time. With Anathema, and you remember the Blood Divine and all the stuff that you.
I remember the Blood Divine.
There's a lot of good stuff coming around.
Obviously, Paradise Lost.
Yeah,
one of the best of the best.
Absolutely.
Might Own Bride.
Yeah.
The new Might Own Bride album again, a great example of a band that still genuinely loves what they do.
Exactly, and you were mentioning earlier. That's like I think is the top criteria for continuing to do music or art in general. I mean, it's not that anybody should care about my opinion on it, but but it really that's what's admirable about the whole thing. Take an example from the country you're standing on the turf of now. I mean, we do have one finally again. It's like, well, I think I brought them up again, but it's like because I tend to try to follow the scene a little bit every now and then, but it's so limited because it's so, it's just so big now. It's so many, it's so oversaturated. It's hard to follow.
That's why you listen to my podcast, mate. I disseminate what you need to be listening to.
I saw your Derek, my good guy in Suffocations. Suffolk.
Yeah. He was on there. That was a while back, but yeah, he was on there. Great dude. Yeah, one of the best of the best.
And that band is fucking awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, again, another great example of a band that even without like an absolute savage of a front band like Frank Mullen, they're still able to make music the way that they've just put out with that last record of theirs. I mean, it's fucking nasty.
I mean, back in the day as well, like you had a huge diversion with you had the separation of death metal, black metal, and etc. But I mean, in the days of this age, I mean, I'd like to think that we like what we like, and I can assure you that a lot of American death metal has been. I can appreciate a lot of that because it's a lot of that art and a lot of the presence and the whole precision-based playing, without being too mechanical and but there's a lot of good stuff coming from there as well in terms of progression in metal and the sub genre, if you will, subgenres of metal, if you will. But yeah, the album that I was thinking about earlier, have you heard Dødheimskar, DHG's last album?
Yeah. You see, so a lot of people I know love it. It for whatever reason, I've just not had that moment with it yet. Okay. And I know I will at some point.
It's a Norwegian thing.
Well, no. Again, the dude that loves it most is my friend Marco from Stellar Master Elite. Yeah. I'm wearing their T-shirt at the moment, but yeah, he thinks it's the most wonderful thing ever. So I know a few other folks whose opinion I respect very, very highly. They've also said good things about it. So I will listen to it, but I know I need to take the time to spend with and listen to it. One of my favorite Norwegian releases of last year was Akhlys, which Svartalv was also involved in.
Oh yeah, I've just seen the name. I haven't had the pleasure of checking.
Absolutely brilliant. Like it has the real old school Norwegian vibe to it, but done in a way that feels very. Like there's like you said, vitality is the word you use. That's a great word to describe it. It still has that kind of youthfulness to it, which sounds like is the case with you guys. But you mentioned like American death metal. You guys very much, you and Marduk, I think, helped bridge that gap between black metal and death metal, because pretty much from when you guys started, you didn't really give a shit about playing with death metal bands. Like you went out on tour with a lot of death metal bands. You went on tour with Cannibal Corpse and stuff like that.
True. I mean, and there I was going to say earlier about after the stuff. Always like another American death metal band that really was hosting us well was them. 2010 we toured with them. Great guys. All things. When the time was there, we we got that possibility to tour with such a big act as Cannibal Corpse surely is. I mean, we all know the Ace Ventura thingy
And actually seemingly getting bigger, by the way.
Yeah.
They, last couple of albums of theirs have been very good, but they seem to be going from strength to strength.
But it was, and it's also funny to bring them up because the authenticity that I feel about the HG we spoke about earlier absolutely applies to a band that in some aspects are viewed as a bit of a childish thingy because of this blood splatter gore thingy. Not such an intellectual approach, kind of applies the same with the movies. I tend to prefer psychological thrillers.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, it's not that I can't watch a slasher every now and then. I mean, there's entertainment in it, at least that was big at some point in life,
But I know
they still have that, but it's in their nature, and I do appreciate a lot that they stick to their guns as much as they do.
Yes,
because I totally respect that, and this I will meet it with every release they do. I mean, I don't have to listen to the last one, but like every now and then, it's like they really do something that blows you out. I mean, really solid albums.
You'll like the new one.
But they did what was it called? The old one with the pounded into dust, Bloodthirst.
Bloodthirst,
The one that is like not hated and loved, I suppose, by many. And then they did this further down the line. They did it Kill, which is probably my favorite album nowadays by Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah,
it's much darker and much technical. With some almost a bit clinical at times. But it's really
you should check out the new one.
I will.
Violence Unimaginable, or Violence Unimagined. It's so Eric Rutan from Lord Angel and Hate Eternal. He's doing more riff writing now. You can hear it, and he's got a much darker style of playing. So yeah,
Pathos dark as well. I would say so.
You would like it. Well, he's a dark character just generally.
but also an amazing guitarist. I mean, definitely got to check. Where did he and
he's in Exorder now.
Exorder was there. Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah, which is very cool. But I know what you mean about the, there's some like whether it's music or movies, there's fast food and there's steak.
Right.
Dry aged, well matured steak. It's kind of what do you want your experience to be? And sometimes you just are in the mood for you're just in the mood for a burger.
Sure.
I am frequently in the mood for a steak, more so than a burger, but still. But
I want to talk metaphor.
I want to talk a bit about the. You got me in the mood for a steak now, actually. I want to talk a bit about Svartalv's involvement on the lyrical side of things. I mean, your lyrics, there's kind of this whole tunnel of set thread that goes through, the last couple of albums. Like when did that connection begin? And Svartalv, you can come into camera actually.
Yeah,
you might comment on it. You'll need to lean into him intimately to answer.
Lean into just not the wrong.
But yeah, we should pick you up on the camera, but on the camera, sorry, on the microphones.
Yeah.
But
hello.
Yeah. So when did
enter my beard?
When did the lyrical arrangement begin? Like how did that all start?
That started almost at the start with Blood is the Mortar. Is that on the first one or the second one?
I think that's the first one.
On the first one. Actually,
no, the second one, sorry. Yeah.
Actually, Raven asked me to fix the studio for their first recording, and he actually asked me to co-produce it. But I did a lot of drugs back then, and I had a bit confused life. So I've probably only popped up like 2-3 times during that whole process.
We were entwined a bit there back then.
Oh yeah.
So how we ended up doing backing vocals on your album, and you were into our album.
Everyone apart from Frost is doing backing vocals on the Tools of the Trade album with Nocturnal Breed, and everything was kind of mixed. Raven was our light and pyro guy with Nocturnal Breed. That's how I kind of met him.
And since I felt I really couldn't do what I was supposed to do, like on that first album, me and Raven just talked, and he said, come up with a lyric. And from there it was first 1 lyric, then 2 on the next one, then 3, and on the last 2 albums.
I was just about to say, because I was going through the credits today, and it's like every single thing, like S Destroyer. I was like,
we changed that to Svartalv now.
Yeah.
Because that SA Destroyer thing is impossible for people to kind of check out in Google, and you just get a bunch of warships and stuff up. So.
Yeah.
And Svartalv is that's the black metal name I
Yeah,
use for the serious productions, and these guys do serious.
What is your approach to the lyric writing? I mean, do you kind of have concepts that you send and they fit it into the music, or do you hear the music first?
Yeah, in the start I did that. I took enormous enjoyment in writing the wildest shit I could come up with and just sending it. And then I hear from these guys just go, what the fuck?
Enhancing it so much, the whole thing.
Yeah, it's really fun to work like that. And for me, it's just super personal. And with 1349, I can dive into the occult stuff.
He's the fifth member of the band, really.
It's like a ghost member. And for 20 years, Raven has said, if you want to join in.
What to say? How come you never?
Guitar or do something.
How come you never started playing with a band?
It's family. Taking care of my daughter, and when she got grown up, I still am so tired of touring. Tremendous respect for these guys who can just keep going and going and going. But pulling that Nocturnal Breed circus around, kind of doing mostly all of it myself, I don't know, I felt like shit every time I walked off that stage because there's a million office things and business things I have to do and stuff. So I just lost that live. If you're gonna do live with these guys, I have to go on stage like I did with Satyricon with ice rolling and I can't
you need to give it your all.
Yeah. So it's kind of out of respect for the whole thing. It would require a lot of practice and things like that. So it's just become a thing. I don't know, in the future something might happen, but as of now, I love when Raven one day, about 5 years between, one day just calls up and says, okay, this next album, and then I'll go, oh yeah, okay, pick some themes. And like this time he just said alchemy. And like the dark spoon of the alchemy, and like the basic bullshit, let's make gold kind of alchemy.
So he didn't go, because the impression I have is that typically it would, for every album it would be, I've got a different idea for this one. I want you to sing about Satan. Would you like the lyrics about the devil?
Like with Cauldron, it was like, he just came with a title that Frost made.
Yeah.
Massive Cauldron of Chaos. I was like, wow, that's a damn hard title to spin anything around. But then it kind of started to bubble, and then it ends up with a whole theme. Even I know I asked Raven here the other day, but I said, no, there's no theme. But there is certain themes on the last album too. There is. But every album gets deeper. The early stuff, like with the music too, it's much wilder. Yeah. And then it gets, as we grow up, it gets more controlled. And
this is fan curiosity more than anything else. Psalm 777. Did you write the lyrics for that? That break, and I know you wrote the music for that. That breakdown after the kind of really sort of that kind of really chaotic like guitar solo craziness, and then it's almost like a breakdown, and then the Raven's vocaling over it. But it's one of the most sinister, fucking evil sounding things I've ever heard in my entire life. It's like and I don't even know what he's singing. There's just a certain rhythm to the way he's singing over the riff.
There's Norwegian lyrics, that one, yeah.
Yeah. It's fucking genius. Absolute genius.
That was one of the harder ones to do. Because writing Norwegian lyrics is really easy if I'm gonna sing about the fjords and the mountains and all that.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna get that fucking aggressive with something, then Norwegian starts sounding stupid. And that's why one of the songs I have written after I got a tape or a CD with the actual song, to get that machine gun kind of every little word, and of course all words.
And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's like
week trying to find that right word that kind of shoots.
There's this percussive element to the way that he sings those lyrics that just sounds fucking fantastic.
He's a huge resource in that department, I would say. It's like, and him and Raven, he's got a good old relationship back in the day. I remember, like, we partied at his place when he was
back then, when he actually he smoked and he drank, and we did both this and that, and suddenly everyone grew up.
There were times.
Yeah, that was nice. We had a lot of stuff. I don't know. It's really weird, this band thing, because Raven is kind of like the conductor. He's kind of like just, now you do this, now you do this. And he's a little bit like that. He's like the Danzig of Norwegian black metal. In the way he kind of, But it's weird because like with this album now, I wrote the lyrics, him and Frost sat down and hacked out that insane amount of riffs and stuff. And then Raven listens to it, kind of applies my lyrics on top of it, and then it comes back to me, and we spend a night or two together, and we just go through every line, like, should we move it there? Comma there, remove a letter. It's down to that. But the magic is when I get, like now, some weeks ago, it's like, here's the finished master. It's like, okay, let's hear it, because I have no clue what... We just do our parts to the best ability we have, and the magic is when we put it on, we go like, there's a whole world here.
Yeah, it's just
there's
working.
a new world.
Oh yeah.
A question for you, and hopefully you don't mind me bringing it up. We spoke about it earlier, but I know you're a new father.
Yeah.
So congratulations,
Sure.
first
Thank
of all.
you
But I mean, reasonably hard touring. Are you still going to keep up that pace?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can't see why. I mean, a lot of musicians have children.
Yeah, no, that's
Most,
true.
I think,
No,
actually.
it's more again. It's kind of more. I know it's more a question of choice, right? Is it do you feel like you should be more housebound now, or is it is the call of the road still very, very strong?
I mean, that's an impossible perspective to take in, actually, to see that I have to do one or the other, because my dedication will lie instinctively to my son and my family, of course. I mean, I have a son with something that transcends your life experience to something completely new. That I thought, I can probably picture what that would be like. When people say you can't picture.
No, you can't.
No, you definitely can't.
Sure, I was Hoven, I was thinking too bold to think. Oh, well, probably can, but eventually it's like when you wake up the next day, it's like, whew, all the things that you thought mattered.
Oh yeah, that changed.
And then eventually, gradually, you get back into the life pace and the groove of reality and the responsibilities, and the best way I can answer your question is that I am fully dedicated to my son and my family, of course. That goes without saying, and I will do whatever. I take the bullet for him, and but also we must keep in mind that I have a responsibility for not just the art itself, but also all the members that I started doing this with. This is the way I like to view it. That there's such an I like the important element of the creation that I am, and I like to have it that way. I like to be a part of it. Like he says, that Raven started 1349, but eventually, like how we all put everything into it, and it's become the total. And it's very. Then also, what you get is the responsibility feeling for your contribution. So it's not something that I would take lightly on in any way. It's something that I'll defend with teeth and nails until the final day. It's also. I don't know if you. Again, I know we're the same age, so I don't know if you think about it in these terms. But there's a legacy element to it as well. It's nice to be able to think like one day, my son or my grandkids are going to be able to go back and listen to Beyond the Apocalypse, and it's like, hey, that's Grandpa's music. That's what. It's a cool thing to think. I think about it with the podcast. Like, my daughter, when we have kids, our kids one day, when dear old dad kicks the bucket, they've got hours and hours and hours of listening to me talk shit with people like you to go back to them. That's what they could get to know me through what I leave behind.
I actually had that conversation with my daughter.
Yeah.
She's 27, so it's a bit easier to have that conversation. But I've gone through.
You made it.
I made it. Fucking made it.
Yeah.
No, I have to kind of go through everything and explain to her that when I'm gone, you can't just take all this shit and throw it out the window.
Throw it in the bin. Yeah.
You have to go here, and like now, with this album with 1349, I've crossed the 320 song barrier on registered songs in the Norwegian register. So I have to tell her that there's probably money there in the future.
I say there's gold in those hills.
There's gold in them there hills, girl. So that she knows, and I've given her the code to my computer. So because I have like 200-300 songs, I've kind of started here and there and done this and that, and that's laying around because it's kind of, I don't know, nothing will be left apart from that kind of thing. That we just keep going. Like we look at our dead heroes now, and their music just keeps going and going. I want to kind of secure that a little bit for my family. And also it's nice that the National Library in Norway contacts me to get the albums. That's one of those, okay, at least you kind of made it out of the ditch.
Let's hope it continues to be like that. Yeah.
That's always blown me away about Norway. Norway is one of the few European countries that actually takes its musical legacy seriously. At least as far as metal is concerned. To me, the tragedy of the UK is the fact that it's a country that brought you the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Motorhead, Black Sabbath, the Sex
The fucking
Pistols.
foundation for all of it.
Exactly, and then it's like, and now if you speak to the average person in the UK about Killing Joke, they fucking look at you blankly. It's like you realize it's like one of the most influential bands on the face of the
Joke
earth.
that started like all these different other genres.
Yeah.
You know.
And no one pays it any kind of respect whatsoever. And that seems to be very different. I've always admired that. I've always thought that's a very cool
The
thing.
media doesn't necessarily do that.
Yeah.
It's still a bit 50-50, and someone's those black metal guys. Half of them have that kind of mentality still. That like in the big picture, that kind of, I think they're a little proud of it because no one ever made anything like this out of Norway, apart from Aha, of course. But we don't have anything.
Is it true
we have
that
Grieg, Aha, and black metal?
I was about to say, is it true? Because I've never come across black metal dudes that aren't into Aha. So black metal guys from
Absolutely. I mean,
I
appreciate
we
good
also
art, and then, I mean, not to be too serious about it, because it's good to play around with things like that, It's like, but yeah, I mean, the cultural aspect of things. Like when we in Norway, we are lucky enough to have a huge support foundation from the Norwegian government, avoiding getting into politics or anything. But
it's easy to kind of start a band here. You get a unused bomb shelter you can rehearse in, and there's always kind of opportunities that
there are solutions.
Yeah. And this is one of the places where you actually can go. Well, I'm gonna be a musician now, and people are like, well, okay, try it out. Instead of just like, fuck that.
Yes, instead of saying,
like I know in Germany, it's still a bit old-fashioned. It's really hard to. I really want to play in this black metal band. It's like, no, mom is not gonna like this. It's not gonna happen.
yeah. All right. One last question? Have you got an idea of when the 1349 new record is going to be coming out?
I do indeed. Brace yourself for October.
Okay.
We'll be touring extensively for this one as well. It's like we're heading off to the States first now in May to present there. We're probably releasing a single prior to that from it, and then we're heading out to some summer festivals. Copenhagen.
I was about to say you guys are playing Copenhagen. I saw that announcement.
Since we played in the Tons of Rock like 2 years ago, and then Sweden Rock last year, and then this one was like that's all the biggest.
Now you can do Danish rock.
It's funny to put them under the belt. It's like kind of small merits that I like. Yeah, try to entertain myself with getting some, just tick it off the list.
I do it the other way. I have said no to Grasspop. I said no to Wacken. I said no to Inferno. I said no to Tons of Rock. I said no to fucking all of them. Yeah.
Cool. Good professional festivals, of course. Though, so at least it's kind of a smooth setup, and most things are prone not to go wrong if you do it right. I'd say in today's age. Optimistic for
I was just
for the
about to
coming
say as
2
well.
years.
Folks of our age, my tolerance with lack of professionalism and fucking around is I can't stand it. So again, I think you and I spoke about this when we were talking before about part of why you dislike touring is just how much of a fucking shambles it is.
I don't dislike the guys and stuff like that. It's just that constant chaos fucking thing. And like with Nocturnal Breed, the band is not big enough that you can go in and just fucking demand everything, And then I start to get pissed off because people try to kind of push me away to do
What, you
their
didn't
shit.
get the pink toilet paper you wanted?
No, I didn't. Fuck. Actually, I wanted those with all the colors, multicolors. So I have a woke ass.
Yeah. All right, guys, thank you so much. Pleasure. That was fucking brilliant. Thank you very much for getting this set up, my friend.
This has been excellent.
Now we're going to find out whether or not we have to redo the whole thing. I take and listen.
I'm out of here. Fuck.
That was Psalm 777 by 1349 off the absolutely outstanding album Demonoir. It came out back in 2010 on Indie Recordings. Given that we had spoken about that particular track, there was no way that I couldn't play it. Sadly, no debut or world premiere of the new 1349 album yet. Like I said, I did actually happen to hear some tracks when we were driving to the Fortress. So I know what it sounds like, and we'll undoubtedly be talking about it later on in the year when the release date gets announced and whatnot. What I can say is it sounds fucking brilliant, and it was so much fun having that chat. Being in that environment, that literally, we went straight from the airport to drop everything off at the hotel and then go straight to the Fortress and meet Archaon there. So I just want to say once again, thank you very much to Svartalv for getting that set up, to Archaon for being a brilliant guest, Just a fantastic way to get acclimatized both mentally and physically to Norway. So hope you guys enjoyed that. As always, I'll post a link to the 1349 Bandcamp in the description to the podcast. You go check that out if you like what you heard. If you don't know 1349, frankly, I'd be staggered that you have made it to this point in the conversation or on the episode. But head over to their Bandcamp and show them some support. Right now, my friends, if you fly the hammer and sickle flag around or you wear a Che Guevara t-shirt because you think it's edgy, then it's time for you to hit the bricks. Because this is my weekly news rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
All right, my friends, we start on metalstorm.net, the greatest metal news website in all the land. The first headline grabbing my attention, and it's based principally on the three morbid-looking men sat there with candles and what looks to be some form of altar. Bythos have a new long player coming out soon. It says here, after 9 years, black and death metal formation Bythos are back with a new full-length announcement entitled Chthonic Gates Unveiled. It will be released by Territor Possessions on April the 19th, 2024. There are 2 tracks here. One is the song Hidden Heart of Darkness. The other is Wolves of Hades. Both sound pretty fucking badass. Let's hear what Wolves of Hades sounds like. That is fucking badass. And I've just been having a quick gander on Metal Archives here. I noticed they've got members of Behexen, Horner, so loads of folks probably sobbing into their oatmeal about this one. Chamber of Unlight, etc., etc. I'm a bit confused as to the headline there around after, not headline, but the subtext, after 9 years they're back, because according to Metal Archive, they released their debut record, The Womb of Zero, back in 2020. So I don't know whether that's a mistake. I would assume a mistake on Metal Archives, although they don't. I've not really had issues with inaccuracy there. But anyways, it doesn't really matter, because what we just heard there is black metal just the way I like it. Aggressive, abrasive, just enough atmosphere to, or just enough, I would say actually not enough atmosphere, because there is a ton of atmosphere there. The right atmosphere is what I should say. The atmosphere that sets the tone that I enjoy. I think those vocals sound hard as fuck as well. For me, everything about that is an absolute thumbs up. So let's, rather than go back to Wolves of Hades, let's hear what Hidden Heart of Darkness sounds like. Not quite as good as Wolves of Hades, but it is interesting that those two songs are in sequence on the record. So Wolves of Hades being first, Hidden Heart of Darkness being after that. And I do think that you need, I mean, I've spoken about this many times, but I do think that you need those slower moments. You need dynamics. You need, the speed. You need slowing down. You need highs and lows on any record. This is a good song. Like I said, not quite grabbing me as much as Wolves of Hades, but both definitely making me interested in hearing what the rest of it sounds like. So thumbs up for me, without a doubt. Okay, let's move on. The next band, or the next headline grabbing my attention, Codex Mortis have launched a brand new track. It's called Capricious Disembodied Villain. It says here, Capricious Disembodied Villain, the first single from black metal ensemble Codex Mortis' forthcoming sophomore record, Tales of Woe, has been unleashed and available for streaming together with an official lyric video. Let's listen. So it's interesting comparing this to Bythos that we just listened to. By contrast, this to me feels a bit soulless. I mean, if we go right back to the beginning of the song, the opening riff feels like something that I've heard many, many times before. It's interesting to hear the interplay between Dutch spoken language and English. These guys are from the Netherlands, so assume Dutch is their native tongue. It's funny hearing those opening lines. I think he says something like "Fool May, Phidias May, Vias May," which means feel me, fear me, be me. That's actually pretty cool. But yeah, the song itself, when it gets started properly, it feels like gateway black metal. It feels like the sort of thing that, to a young buck somewhere, they're going to listen to this and they're going to go, okay, this is pretty decent. Maybe I should check out some other black metal bands. And that's how they're going to get into it. But it's not something that if you've been into the scene for a long period of time, you will not have heard anything in the 1 minute 17 seconds there that you haven't heard millions of times before, done way better. And it's just not, like I said, it's just not grabbing me. Maybe it is recency bias, because Bythos was really impressive. But I'm not going to give this a thumbs down. I'm not going to call it rubbish. I'm not necessarily going to be, doing cartwheels down the road about it either. Thus, let's move on. Celestial Season have a new song online. Now, these guys have been around for a very long time. I remember some associates of mine at the time that they brought out their album Solar Lovers, which I think came out back in 1995, being really into them. I myself was not, because Celestial Season were in that set that I have referred to many times of bands that, in my opinion, it was like they were trying to effeminize metal. And amongst them, I count bands like Crematory, Theatre of Tragedy, later on Ever Eve, Orphanage, who interestingly enough I think are from the Netherlands too, which is whence Celestial Season hail from. It was just never my thing. Solar Lovers, it had one or two moments that were decent, but I like music that's in your face and aggressive and, as Morgan from Marduk would say, a fist in the face. Celestial Season is anything but. To me, it's music for, at least from my recollection, music for simps. I think that's the only way I can describe it. Music for men that take metal poetry or metal lyrics and send it to women and then claim that it's their own poetry that they wrote for them. That would be my take on Celestial Season's audience. And I'm sorry if I've insulted anyone, but that's just my view. That being said, I have pledged many times, and I will reiterate, the news rant is not about cherry picking things that I think is going to sound cool and only listening to that. There is, I can't think of anything more boring than a fucking news segment where I spend all my time telling you, this is great, this is phenomenal, this is awesome. So we are going to listen to this and see whether or not Celestial Season can work their way, claw their way into that group of bands that have, in real time, turned my opinion. We had that with Watain, we had that with Dark Funeral. I don't think we're going to get it with Celestial Season, but stranger things have happened. It says here, in the wake of their new album release, the third part of the Mysterium trilogy, entitled Mysterium 3, due on May the 17th, Celestial Season premiere a new track in advance, Fecund Universe. And apparently fecund, I think, means fertile. So, Fertile Universe. They just went and grabbed the old thesaurus and said, let's make this sound like we're incredibly clever. Hopefully they are as clever when it comes to writing their music. Let's find out. Alright, there are many things wrong with this song. We'll start with the most obvious. The fact that the vocalist for Celestial Season is incapable of injecting any sort of rhythm into his voice. And I get it's not a, not a scumbag beat song. It's not a fast song. Maybe you could make the argument that it's not necessarily called for. But let's take the line, "Take me to unknown roads." The way that he delivered it there, it literally sounds like an old man getting out of the bath. Like, "Take me to unknown roads." It's like there's just nothing to it. There's, maybe it's because I grew up with a different view of what death metal vocals or extreme metal vocals should be. But extreme metal vocals should be an additional instrument, not just a bunch of fucking moaning or, growl speak over the music, which is exactly what this is. Then we move on to the melody, which, or the main riff, which just to me sounds like somebody had a tape recorder with them when they went to listen to, when they stuck their ear against a wall at the My Dying Bride band rehearsal, and while Andrew or one of the boys was fucking around on their guitar warming up for the actual rehearsal, this person heard something and went, "Amazing, let's make an entire song based around that fucking doodle." Yeah, the melody is just bereft of any sort of power, bereft of anything that convinces me in any way whatsoever. It's not emotional. It's not aggressive. It doesn't hit like any real kind of, it doesn't tap into anything that gauges a response from me, other than to say that the scientific phrase or the scientific term for this song, and most likely for the rest of Mysterium 3, is fucking bullshit. So let's move on. Civil War's vocalist has left the band. No fucking idea who Civil War is. Don't care. Il Nino have announced 25 years of the Latin American or Latin metal European tour. Can't imagine anything fucking worse than going to see Il Nino. Let's see what else. We've got Night Rage, a Throne of Melancholy streaming, or single now streaming. Experienced melodic death metal ensemble Night Rage are unveiling A Throne of Melancholy as the second single of their 10th full-length effort, Remains of a Dead World, which drops on May the 31st on Despots Records. Melodic death metal is not my tempo, and it is not the tempo of the vast majority of folks that listen to Into the Necrosphere. But let's give it a try. All right, that's enough. The only rage that I think truly could apply to this band is the rage that people in the audience will feel when they go one song over what they should do in the perennial opening slot that they will occupy for the remainder of their career. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of melodic death metal. I kind of gave it a chance because there have been a couple of exceptions. I remember last year, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but there were a couple of melodic death metal bands that brought out stuff that sounded interesting, a little bit different, sounded a bit more aggressive. That doesn't sound aggressive, angry, heavy. It's well played, it's decently produced, but those are table stakes and nothing that I personally think any band should be praised for in 2024. If you're not bringing that to the table just as a baseline, then you can fuck off. So yeah, maybe it'll find its audience. Its audience will not include yours truly. Blaze of Perdition have posted a new track. It says 2 weeks prior to the release of their new album, HORSEMEN, Polish black metal band Blaze of Perdition premiere a music video for the new single called Brez Rani. The clip was directed by a name that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. I do like Blaze of Perdition though, and I do like me some Polish black metal, so let's listen. That is magnificent. I spoke to Sheriff Mike Scondado when he was a guest on the News Rant a couple of weeks ago about Blaze of Perdition. But I will repeat again, if you aren't familiar with this band, then I would very strongly recommend that you go back and start with their first record, Towards the Blaze of Perdition, which in my opinion is a classic. It's perhaps an unspoken classic, but it's a classic all the same. It's really, really good. The Hierophant, which is the next record they released, is equally good. I felt like the Harrowing of Hearts, which was the record they put out previously back in 2020, it was a good album, but it lacked some of the confrontation of Towards the Blaze of Perdition. The severity of Towards the Blaze of Perdition wasn't there really at all. And there were some songs that were very, very, very listenable and that were very enjoyable. But just overall, I was missing that because that's what I really felt was a strength of the band. And I felt that they'd strayed away from it a little too far on the Harrowing of Hearts, especially, I guess, the longer I spent time with that record. My first impressions of that record were actually overwhelmingly positive. But the longer I kind of dwelled on it, and went back to it and re-listened to it, the less the pull was, if that makes sense. And the more I actually just wanted to go back and listen to the first stuff. This, to me, Upharsin, and again, apologies to any Polish friends for wrecking your your language, but this to me sounds like they've taken the best of the melody from the Harrowing of Hearts, and they have kind of brought back a lot of that aggression and a lot of that intensity into this new material, and I am absolutely here for it. Both songs we've listened to so far have been fucking tier 1, so let's go back to it. Top notch. That is the only way to brand. That is what the song truly deserves. Is the greatest accolade in all of underground music. Top notch on the Into the Necrosphere news rant. Mark your calendars. It's April the 19th that record is released. It's out on Metal Blade Records. There is some controversy around the band, so brace yourself for all manner of sobbing on the socials when the record is released, but definitely don't sleep on it. I know there's a lot of good stuff coming out right now, and I kind of feel like, this is an album that could quite easily get buried amongst the hoopla surrounding all of those, but do not sleep on it. It is, from what I can tell, going to be fucking brilliant. Okay, In Aphelion have released a new song. In Aphelion are streaming a brand new single, When All Stellar Light Is Lost. It serves as a first taste of their sophomore record, Reaper Dawn, which is coming out on August the 9th, 2024. The accompanying video clip was directed by Claudio Marino. It looks like it's out on Century Media. Interesting that they are starting to release music off of it now, considering when the record is coming out, which normally to me suggests that the label believes there's something there. There's like, I don't know exactly how it works, and maybe I can get Katie on the podcast to explain it to me one day, but my logic would dictate that if a label, believe that there is a very strong chance of an album becoming a hit in metal terms, they're going to start the PR campaign much sooner. And again, like I said, the fact that we're just outside of the end of March, it's the 7th of April at the time that I record this, and they're already putting out music. It would present to me that the label is pretty hot on this. So let's hear if that confidence is well founded. All right, well, I can lift a little of the mystery as to why the label is hot on this band. They feature no less than 2 former members of Niflheim. And Niflheim, if you don't know, shame on you, are Swedish black metal royalty in really whichever way you cut it. They are on hold right now. They haven't put out a record since 2007. That record was Envoy of Lucifer. I absolutely loved it. But the fact that you've got 2 former members of the band in this project, no surprise. There is some degree of excitement around it. And I can also see musically why that's the case, because, musically it sounds like very high-level Swedish black metal. You can hear the Swedish influence. I think Sweden, much like Norway, has a very specific, there are bands that obviously are exceptions, but has a quite specific way of presenting black metal as an art form. Necrophobic is a good example of that. Vartain is a good example of that. These guys play in that space, and I think can hold their own very, very well, which is, again, not a surprise considering the caliber of musician that they have in the band. So, thumbs up for me. Let's give it another 60 seconds. And then adding the dynamics in as they've done there, that just takes it to a whole new level. Top notch on this one as well. Brilliant. Love it. Absolutely fucking love it. I like the production as well, I should say. That mix is very, as it's coming through these vocals, really nice and warm. It just has, it's got body to it. There's nothing to fault about it. By the way, speaking of vocals, let me know in the comments what you guys think of this idea. I want to approach my friend Runa of the company Griffin Audio about being on the podcast when I'm in Munich for the Munich High-End Hi-Fi show. It will be possibly not a numbered episode of Into the Necrosphere, although maybe the logic around that is a bit silly, but because it's going to, he is not into metal by any stretch of the imagination, and we're not going to be talking about metal at all. It'll really be talking about the high-end audio industry, how he got involved in it. Griffin is obviously kind of like, they position themselves as the Lamborghini of high-end audio, so their entry-level stuff is more expensive than most people will spend in a lifetime on audio equipment. But I think it could be quite interesting. And given the fact that there's always a relatively positive response from all of you when I talk about high-end audio and hi-fi stuff on the show, and we're all of the same ilk. We listen obsessively to our music and we want to hear it presented in the best way possible. I just thought that it might be something quite interesting and quite different. So if you are interested in an episode with, really a fucking man's man. He's a top-notch dude. Talking about high-end audio with one of the guys representing one of the very best brands in the industry, in my opinion, then let me know. And if you are going to be, for whatever reason, at the Munich High-End Hi-Fi show in May, then let me know as well, because we can hook up and have a beer. Okay, next up, Night Shall Drape Us have unleashed another song. We listened to the first single off of this not too long ago. I loved it. Most of you really love it too. I would be surprised if this one turns out to be shit. It says here, Black Metal Operatives, Night Shall Drape Us represent Ashes of Men, another new preview tune from their soon-to-be-released debut long player, Lunatic Choir. The latter hits the streets on April the 26th on Season of Mist. Let's shut the fuck up and listen. Unsurprisingly, this is excellent. As we mentioned on the last time that I played a track by these guys, you've got Afgrun's Prophet on vocals, also known as Wrath. And he sounds great. The music sounds superb. There's just, again, nothing to fault about this. This is black metal exactly the way that I like it. Raw, nasty, spicy as all get out. So superb from my perspective. Okay, I'm going to jump straight to what is probably the biggest news of the weekend. And when I say biggest news of the weekend, I was really surprised by how big the response actually was to this. And of course, I'm talking about the new Akhlys. Or I keep saying Akhlys, it's Akhlys. So I'm going to apologize right now, and I will promise I will endeavor to correct my mispronunciation of the band's name. So it says here, Akhlys are ready to release the successor to their 2020 music output Melano. The new studio album is dubbed House of the Black Geminus. You would have known that if you listened to my last conversation with Akhlys main man Nars Alchemeth. And it sees its official release on July the 5th, 2024 via Deborah Morty Productions. What a year Deborah Morty Productions is having. Back in 2020, they featured on no less than 4 of my top 5 releases of that year. Ulcerate, Akhlys, Aversio Humanitatis, and Selbst. And we know that Selbst and Ulcerate and Akhlys are putting out new music. I'm hoping for some new Aversio Humanitatis. I suspect they may well have another bumper year on the greatest top 30 in all of underground music. But in any case, let's listen to what the song sounds like. They don't actually have the track here. But I have conveniently lined it up for us on YouTube. And I remembered this time round to actually change to my personal account so that we don't have to endure any ads. So the first single they've released off the record is Sister Silence, Brother Sleep. Part of a very complex and interesting concept, which again, hopefully Nars will come on the podcast at some point over the next couple of months to talk us through. But let's hear what the song sounds like. It is really telling that on a weekend where there were some really good releases, big name releases, what got the most attention was a new single by Akhlys. And justifiably so, in my opinion, because the song is fucking magnificent. Right from the start, it's instantly recognizable as Akhlys. But I would say my ears are hearing a definite elevation of the melodic side of the band, and a slight pulling back of the intensity of Melano. Melano had a very strong sense of urgency. It was highly aggressive, highly angry, but there was a real urgency to every single song. This I kind of feel has just dialed that urgency back a little bit. And that has changed the atmosphere a little to something that I would say probably has a bit more in common with the earlier Akhlys records, A Supplication and The Dreaming Eye. But I think the overall presentation is just of this really epic wall of sound that just floods over you when you listen to it. I would be very curious to know as well how many tracks are actually in that recording, because I wouldn't be surprised if it's north of 80 or 90. I mean, it's just on these headphones, it just sounds absolutely massive. Nas sounds fantastic. The band sound in absolutely superb form. I love the mix, love the production. Every single thing about the song is just 10 out of 10. Let's get back to it. There's also something quite cinematic about the song, I would say, and that doesn't surprise me, because again, when Nas was on the podcast previously, he spoke at length about how much he enjoys movies. It wouldn't surprise me that he would incorporate some of the some of those kind of orchestral cinematic soundscapes that are on his favorite films into his music. This is just, to me, this is black metal perfection. Every single element of what's going on here is just working in lockstep with the other. It's got a natural feel. It's got an organic feel. It's kind of like when I talk about Dimebag or Matt Pike's guitar playing, be sounding natural and sounding organic, sounding like it's, firing from their fingers. Everything here sounds like it is just coming out of the band themselves. And of course, there were some boos from the gallery. Metal's Red Guard on Metal Twitter were in full force, sobbing and crying about this. But it's kind of amusing and ironic that for all of the cancellation attempts at this band, I would pose the question about how successful has that actually been. Like, when they put out a new single, and if this were like another band, these numbers wouldn't be so impressive, but a band that's this intense in the black metal scene, in the underground, inside of 48 hours, getting 9,200 views on YouTube, like I said, overshadowing a very significant chunk of what was released this weekend, that kind of tells you that there is no stopping them. And for my money, as far as the Red Guard and the cancellers are concerned, my position with folks like that now is I will try my best to find common ground with anybody, and I will make a decision based on how much common ground we're able to find based on a number of criteria. But I think if your view is that there should be no limit to the amount of quote-unquote consequences that somebody has to suffer for disagreeing with your opinion or expressing an opinion that you don't like, and there should be no limit to the degree to which you can socially, professionally, and personally attack them, then we just have nothing in common. And you and your Red Guard friends can continue with your struggle sessions and try and pretend that you're revolutionaries, but you're not going to do that around me, because it's not that I love or hate those people. I'm just completely and utterly indifferent to them, and there's nothing that benefits me investing my time in engaging with them in any way whatsoever. So therefore, I'm just not going to do it. And I think I'm starting to feel like there's a shift in the metal scene generally to where people are starting to get that way more now than they've certainly have been for a very long time. You guys tell me if I'm wrong, but I can definitely see a shift in just the overall culture. Like I got that sense at Inferno as well. The hate speech what's that panel that I was on, that's going to be coming up pretty soon, and you guys will see what I mean when you see that as well. I think people just generally they're fed up of it. They're fed up of being told what they can and can't do by a small group of people who have appointed themselves as the guardians of social norms. All right. Let's move on. Benighted have put out another new track, the third single off of their forthcoming album. It says here 10 days prior to the official release of their 10th full-length effort, Ekbom, extreme metal formation Benighted offering listening the third single titled Metastasis. I really, really like that second single. So excited to hear what this one sounds like. Holy shit. I have to tell you, I've enjoyed the last two the last two Benighted singles so much that I'm thinking that it merits me going back and checking out their back catalogue again. Because as I said when we got to, I think it was the first or maybe the second single of this album, they've never been a band that's really, been on my radar all that much. Like, I've always heard them and gone, okay, that's decent, and then you sort of move on to the next thing. But these last two singles have been sensational. And when they throw in that breakdown, like we just paused on there, that is just all kinds of badass, and thus right up my street. That is top notch, and I'll tell you something else. Kevin Perdition, their drummer, is fucking brilliant. I mean, just technically, he is as lit as the as lit as the fucking youth would say, as it gets. All right. Lambonic Art have detailed their next long player. Let's see if there's some new music. Yes, there is. It says here, Norway's black metal unit Lambonic Art share details and first single regarding the release of their new studio record titled Opus Daemonical. It will land in stores on June the 28th via Kirk Productions. Like Lambonic Art, excited to hear this new single because I've not listened to it yet. I didn't even realize that they had released a new single. So without further ado, let's give it a whirl. Love it, and I know I love it because I was getting lost in listening to the song, and I realized, okay, it's already gone on for, again, longer than I would normally listen to a clip on the news rant. But yeah, just great atmosphere. It kind of has a fair bit in common, unsurprisingly, with Spectre Abysm, which was the last album that they put out. But I've been following Limbonic art ever since Moon in the Scorpio, which was their debut record back in 1996. And they've always been a band that was interesting to me. Kind of a band that could have been bigger, or project, I should say, because they're not really a touring band or anything like that, but a project that could have been a lot bigger than they ended up being. But I think maybe due to the fact that they only released their first record, after the crest of the wave, as far as Norwegian black metal is concerned, possibly is why they weren't, they didn't feature as high up on people's radars as they might otherwise have done. But yeah, I like this. It's very, very distinctly Norwegian. It is very distinctly old school. There's not a lot of modern. It's kind of quite an interesting contrast listening to this after listening to Akhlys. You can kind of hear where the genre has gone versus where the genre has come, and obviously this is very much paying tribute to where the genre has come from. But yeah, thumbs up for me. I like it. So interestingly, Kirk Productions are registered to an address in Greece, and this seems to be the first record that they are putting out. If I have a quick gander at the Kirk Productions website, it looks like it's kind of a mail order. It's at least started as a distro, and they're now doing their own thing musically. So yeah, kudos to them. Kudos to them for putting out this record. And kudos to them or good luck to them, I should say, for whatever they end up doing in the future. There's exciting stuff happening in the Greek scene, not just musically, but I just think generally speaking, it just seems to be a scene that is on the ascent. And just as a side note, I caught a little snifter of a new Vothroch song over the weekend. And Vothroch is a band I have championed on this podcast many times. Extreme black and death metal from Greece, featuring my friend Knossos of the band Utkana. I will just signpost this right now. If that is due for release in 2025, that's going to be a big one, and you will hear plenty more about that band and hopefully from members of that band on the podcast in the future. Okay, let's head over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music and have a gander and see what's going on here. Megadeth's Dave Mustaine on singing about political issues. I don't try and tell people in my songs what to do. There's actually one thing I agree with him on. He's always been he's a very opinionated guy, but when it comes to politics, he's been quite almost standoffish in most of his music. Even when he actually touches on politics, he kind of seems to touch on principle more so than anything else. Like I'm just thinking of Foreclosure for a Dream or Of a Dream or whatever the song is called. What else? Yeah, some of the stuff on Rust in Peace. And I respect that. I saw that Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, made the terrible mistake of daring to say on an interview that he was not going to endorse anyone for president this year, and that he was keeping his politics to himself. The sheer outburst of weeping on his socials is just fucking mind-boggling to see. There's a whole bunch of people that wrote everything from "I've never been so disappointed in anyone in my entire life" to what's saying "Stop being such a coward and tell us who you're voting for." What the fuck does it have to do with you, mate? I think if he wants to keep his political opinion to himself, he's absolutely within his rights to do so, and there's nothing cowardly about it. Considering the fact that anyone who dares share an opinion, whether left or right, is all, suddenly under fire from the fucking opposing team, quote unquote. What is the point of speaking too openly about what you think about politically? But that, unfortunately, is the state of affairs in particularly the West in 2024, and I fully expect it to get much worse as we close in on November. And the US elections, already I see the hysterical screaming about, this is a choice between fascism and democracy. And weirdly enough, it's on both sides that are saying exactly the same thing. I thought democracy was about, voting for whoever I want. But apparently if you don't vote for whoever, ex-dickhead on the internet tells you to vote for, then you're against democracy. So anyway... Nikki Six says, new Motley Crue music has been described as a powerful cross between country and hip-hop. That article was posted on April the 5th, so I assume this isn't an April Fool's joke. I don't think any genre is going to salvage new Motley Crue music. It will be described by me as a powerful cross between turd and fucking dog poo. Right, there's a new Kurt Cobain documentary coming on the BBC. Here's one that was interesting. There was news over the last couple of days that Kiss have sold their music catalog to, and I keep on bumping into fucking ads here, by the way, so if you hear me just trailing off, it's because I'm trying to navigate that while still sounding slick and professional. But anyway, it says here that the group Pop House, or the consortium known as Pop House, bought the Kiss back catalog for $300 million, which is not a bad day's pay. Gene Simmons of Kiss insists that financial gain is not what the sale is about. I'm sure $300 million helps, though, because I would assume that he and Paul Stanley are going to enjoy the lion's share of that payday. He said, yeah, it's about enjoying life, while adding, I'm certainly blessed. You most certainly are. In a separate interview with TMZ, Simmons defended Kiss's plans for an Avatar concert similar to ABBA's with digital versions of the group. AI, artificial intelligence, I almost fucking said official intelligence. It potentially will be official intelligence if the government has anything to do with it. Is here to stay. Technology is here to stay, and you either join in and try to adapt and try to figure out how that works with you, or you just yesterday's news in a very real way. And I again, people might very emotionally say, well, no, it's not true, never for me, I'm against AI. But yeah, you do kind of need to lean into it, because I think if you lean too far away from it, you are going to find yourself, having a far tougher life than really you ought to. I still contend, I think within our scene, within music, I think, real music, real art is always going to rise to the top, because it doesn't matter how much you train a fucking machine. The machine is not going to be able to... The machine can't express genuine, tangible, authentic emotions. And I think whilst that is the case, and it will be the case, I think, forever, because AI isn't human beings, and we don't have to get into that whole philosophical discussion, but that is just how it's going to be. Good music is always going to be good music. And I go back, when I think about these things, I go back to a conversation I had with Glenn Danzig, where he was talking to me about having the opportunity to go to one of those House of Cash sessions that Johnny Cash used to have, where he would invite all of his mates over, and apparently they would sit in the great room of Johnny's mansion, and they would all start singing. And he said, you would see people like Roy Orbison sat there, and he said when they opened their mouths, it just gave you goosebumps. And yeah, you cannot possibly duplicate that with the most powerful computer on the face of the earth. You could combine every single piece of computing power available to man right now. I still don't think you could replicate that. So, yeah. As far as using AI to do a Avatar concert like Kiss want to do, that's a different story. I think for some people it'll be quite cool to see that. For some people it won't. For the people for whom it won't, I hope you had the opportunity to see Kiss when they were doing their thing. Or at the very least when they announced their inevitable reunion. I hope you're ready to buy tickets. Actually, I think they may be a little old for a reunion, but it is salient to point out or to report on this Kiss story about them sharing their rights, because Spotify has been back in the news again this week. And Trent Reznor has been the one talking about it. Not really Spotify as much, but he's really talking about streaming music generally. So the headline here reads, Trent Reznor, streaming music services have mortally wounded a whole tier of artists. It says here, Nine Inch Nails leader Trent Reznor has blasted Spotify and Apple Music for the paltry payments the music streaming services pays out to music rights holders. Speaking to GQ magazine, the industrial rock pioneer said, I think the terrible payout of streaming services has mortally wounded a whole tier of artists that make being an artist unsustainable. And it's great if you're Drake, it's not great if you're Grizzly Bear. The reality is, take a look around. We've had enough time for the whole all boats rise argument to see that they don't all rise. Those boats rise, these boats don't. They can't make money in any means, and I think that's bad for art. He continued, I thought maybe at Apple there could be an influence to pay in a more fair or significant way, because a lot of these services are just a rounding error compared to what comes in elsewhere, unlike Spotify, where their whole business is that. But that's tied to a lot of other political things and label issues, and everyone's trying to hold onto their little piece of the pie, and it is what it is. I also realize I think people just want to turn the faucet on and have music come in. They're not really concerned about all the romantic shit I just mattered. I thought mattered. So, I've spoken about this on the podcast before, and it's a subject I continue to be fascinated in. The streaming industry, the music industry as a whole. I think Trent maybe kind of realizes what the real problem is, and I say this as somebody who's not being an apologist for Spotify or for Apple Music by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, Spotify had, paid millions of dollars to Meghan Markle to have a podcast on their platform. So that to me immediately suggests that, we have a divergence of opinion on a great many things. But I do think the real villain in this story isn't actually Spotify or Apple Music. It is the three biggest rights holders in the music industry, and those are Universal Music, Sony, and Warner Brothers. I mean, they own the rights to about 70% of all published music, and it's them who gets the lion's share of payments from Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, YouTube Music, Tidal, Qobuz, etc. And because of the way in which they have negotiated their contracts with those streaming services, because if you think about it, if you want to host a mainstream platform like Spotify, you have to have trash like Taylor Swift, Adele, Ed Sheeran, and other garbage on your platform. Otherwise, people just won't go there. So the label, although those three groups that I just mentioned now, those three labels I just mentioned, they know that, so they use that as leverage in their negotiation, and thus they get paid the vast majority of the money that comes in as revenue for Spotify. I think the number that I read suggested that they get paid around 70% of Spotify's top line revenue. Spotify's music streaming revenue only has a gross margin of 25%, which, I mean, gross margin for them would be revenue brought in by advertising, by subscription, and other means, minus the cost of doing business, or basic cost of doing business, which in their case is going to be paying the rights holders, right? And then after that, you still have to start paying your operational costs. So they only have 30% of their revenue left to start paying operational costs, research and development, all that sort of thing. So there's just not a lot of money to pay artists. I mean, it sucks, and I wish the artists could get paid more, but I think if they want to be, or if musicians want to be pissed off with anybody and boycott anybody, you should be pissed off with Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers. Less so Spotify or Apple Music. Spotify would have been in a better position if they were able to actually license music directly from the artist rather than from the companies that hold the publishing rights. But they're not able to do that. They're also not allowed, as is my understanding, to start a record label of their own and actually sign bands and just pay them directly. Because if you think about the Netflix model, so Netflix were in a similar boat to Spotify when they started, and that's why they started investing so much in original content, because if they have original content, they can pay the content creators a good amount of money, but they don't have to pay the fucking insane margins on top to Paramount Pictures, Disney, etc. Anyway, I mean, I'm kind of, pontificating and hopefully not rambling, but just sort of pontificating here. But I mean, in my mind, the only real option here, at least as far as the metal scene is concerned, if we want to see any kind of change, is one, starting our own streaming platform, kind of like what Chris Krieg is doing with Ampwall as an alternative to Bandcamp. But I think if you speak to Chris, he'll be first to say it's a hard slog. It's not just a case of, well, I'm going to do an alternative, and the next day you've got an app that can do it. That's just not possible. I would say having a streaming platform like that without any sort of mainstream appeal, I think is going to be tough. The other options are for fans. Don't subscribe to Spotify or Apple Music or Qobuz. Buy all of your music, buy merch, go to shows, buy vinyl. That is really the only way in which you can support artists. If I were a musician right now, I would focus on, if I'm gonna try and make a living out of this, I should say, I'd focus on generating revenue out of the things I just mentioned before. I'd make sure my merch is fucking awesome. I would build a reputation for putting on the best shows possible. I'd make sure my vinyl is absolutely killer and people want it. And I would use Spotify and Apple Music and all the other streaming services basically as a marketing platform. A marketing platform from whence I get about 3 cents, for every couple of hundred songs that are streamed of mine. But like I said, it's a tough one, and I'm not. I just want to reiterate again, I'm not coming to the defense of these companies, but I do think that without somebody actually having a sober conversation about it, or without more sober voices addressing what the real problem is, there's not going to be any fixing it. And I'm surprised by how many folks will jump on the socials and complain about the streaming sites without really understanding how it works, what the revenue model looks like and what's feasible. It's not possible for Spotify to just pay people more money. They have never made a profit in a single quarter ever since they started. And here's another very interesting data point. It wasn't until last year that they actually increased their subscription price from when they had started back in, I think, 2011. And you think about just the amount of inflation and how much more expensive everything is. That inflation would hit their salary costs, if nothing else. So the fact that they kept their prices steady for so long is fucking amazing. And it kind of suggests to you that they're probably not as commercially minded as they're made out to be. Just because they make a lot of money at the top line doesn't mean they're making any profit. And you can look into this if you disagree. And I'd love to hear opposing points of view to this as well. If you can suggest to me a way in which a service like Spotify can pay the artists more, when in their last quarter they made a $75 million operating loss, then I'm all ears. So yeah, again, if you want to be pissed off with anybody, blame Napster for devaluing music. Blame Steve Jobs for creating a model where people no longer were obligated to buy albums. They started getting into the habit of buying single songs for 99 cents that they liked. And then blame the rights holders, because the rights holders are the ones that are making the vast majority of the money and that are very, very proactive in ensuring that they, to Trent's point, that their piece of the pie is kept very, very thoroughly intact. I mean, if the American government want to invest, or the EU want to invest into, or do any sort of, investigate, or do any sort of antitrust investigations, they should be doing it into the music industry. They won't, because the music industry, particularly those three groups I mentioned before, they do contribute an awful lot politically. So I don't expect to see that change anytime soon. But yeah, like I said, buy merch, buy music, generally speaking, CDs, tapes, whatever you want to listen to it on. Buy vinyls, go to shows. That's how you support bands in 2024. You're not going to support them any other way. And that's how bands will be able to make a living out of it. And unfortunately, there's only so much money to go around. And there's so many bands putting out good music, which, bringing it full circle is, again, why it's so fucking mind-boggling to me that someone like Patrick Mameli from Pestilence would not only put out a half-assed product in this shite that Pestilence are about to release now, but then actually have the fucking nerve to get into an argument with his fans about it. In any case, my friends, on that poignant note, I am wrapping up the news rant for this week. All right, I promised to those of you who stuck around until the very end, I would share who my big name guest was going to be in 3 weeks' time. There's an irony to this as well, because at the beginning of the year, I did an AMA on Instagram, and I asked who would you guys most like to see on Into the Necrosphere in 2024? And there were a couple of names, many of which you would expect. Mortis of Marduk, obviously, Morgan from Marduk. Many of you want to see Attila come back on for a second round, and I would certainly love that. But one name stood out above all, and that name, of course, was David Vincent, formerly of Morbid Angel, now with Ultimass, I Am Morbid and Terrorizer. So, guess who my guest is going to be in 3 weeks' time? That's right, Frankie of the band Emure. No, it is going to be none other than Evil D himself. That episode was recorded this past Thursday. At his behest, I avoided questions about Morbid Angel, and I actually think that made for an even better conversation. You guys will tell me what you think, but I feel quite confident that this is a side of David that very, very few interviews has managed to tease out, if you will. So that is coming your way in 3 weeks' time. Next week, I've got the great and powerful SB of Antichrist Siege Machine. That is another really, really, really cool chat, and I think, again, many of you are going to find it extremely interesting. It's the first time he's ever been on a long-form podcast, so brace yourself for that. But given that we have had such an epic, momentous, and manly show, I'm going to close off in the only way, frankly, that one could for an episode like this. Back when I was still doing the Inferno radio show on a shitty little radio station in Bloemfontein, South Africa called RSFM, we would close off every single installment with this particular song, the most manly and abrasive of all black metal songs, in my opinion, Destroyer by Gorgoroth. I'm going to get out of here. I've got shit to do and steaks to grill. Whatever it is that you're doing, wherever it is that you find yourself when you're listening to this, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.